Welcome to the Big Me Kickoff. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. January 27th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Wow. Just wow. It's been a week, maybe minus a couple of hours, since Ohio State kicked off and subsequently won the national championship game against Notre Dame. And it has been a whirlwind. It has been a whirlwind for all of the football that was played. 16 games, mind you. There were highs, there were lows. And as I was putting the show together a couple of days ago, I didn't necessarily expect talk of a coaching change at a coordinator level position. Now, I'm not going to sit there and get into the game that so many people like to play of, when did you have it? Who had it first? Whatever. I'll let weaker people play that game. And I see a super chat, and I'll get to that in a second. But let me get through my little diatribe first, as I'm sure I look tired as hell right now, and I am, and I'm sick, and I've been sick for the last couple of weeks. But I think those of us in the industry had heard of, the potential of Jim Knowles moving on. And we had gotten into, it was Oklahoma. It was going to be Oklahoma. And I had 5,000 reasons why that one didn't make sense. He's not from Oklahoma. Yeah, he coached at Oklahoma State, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I believe his girlfriend lives down there. I don't really get into the personal lives of these coaches. I don't want them getting into my jacked up personal life either. So, you kind of live and let live. And then, Penn State kind of presented itself the last couple of days. And to Chadwick, it's not slander if it's true. It's not slander if it's true. And, I went through it with a buddy of mine who covers Penn State, and, I'll leave his name out of this as I'm sure he'd want. And, we went round and round about it, and it started to make sense. So I don't know when anybody else was saying it, but, internally, I think we all at Huddle had it pretty much locked down that it was not a matter if he was leaving. Probably not really even a matter of when he was leaving. The belief was going to be after the championship celebration. It was just going to be a matter of the destination. And it looked like it was Penn State. And I don't necessarily want this to turn into a Penn State Knowles show. You guys control the topics we talk about. And I'm getting to Ryan's Super Chat here in a second. But my idea of this show is more to talk about what a great season than anything else. And, had, somebody's like, more like what great treason with Knowles leaving. We can talk about it. I've cleared out about an hour and a half. I've stopped clearing out an hour. We never are done in an hour, not on a live show. Too many questions. I fall too far behind. So I've cleared out 90 minutes, hopefully to make it 90 minutes, not clearing out 90 minutes to make it 2.5 hours. Now, if we have 5,000 people on the line and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of super chats coming in, I'll stick around. We'll get to Ryan Dawes' comment here next, and then I'll tell you how you can help support us here at Buckeye Huddle and some things we've got on the way. But super chat, Ryan Dawes. I know people are upset about Knowles, and it's disappointing he left for Penn State. However, I like to think about all people who are returning, incoming freshmen and transfers coming to earn a spot. And, and I think that there's a ton of truth to that, Ryan. If you allow yourself to get bound up in the past too much, then how can you enjoy the present? And you certainly are not going to be able to enjoy the future. None of us know what the future is going to look like in football, in life, in any of that. And I'm probably one of the biggest perpetrators out there for not enjoying the moment. Character flaw? Probably. I'm a flawed individual, I'll tell you that. So, Yeah, it's disappointing. It's going to make that Penn State game this season, extra spicy for fans. Penn State fans who are going to sit there and think that they won the national championship over landing Jim Knowles from Ohio State. Ohio State fans who are going to want blood for the ultimate betrayal and everything else, or however they want to put it. I'm just here for a good football game. And I'm also here for trends. As you know, a lot of the pieces that I write over at Buckeye Huddle are statistically based. I'm looking for trends, things of that nature. And the trend is Ohio State owns Penn State. And there have been years I can say it's been a coaching issue. But at the end of the day, isn't the coaching issue at the hands of the head coach more so than the coordinators? I mean, there have been times that it's been down into knuckle-busting time or an overtime or whatever, and Penn State runs a really stupid play, and Ohio State is like 8 steps ahead of them and stops them. Or there have been times where Penn State doesn't had the personnel. They still don't have wide receivers. Not even sorry a little bit. And their offensive line is still questionable at times. Let's close my Outlook so I quit getting little things that ring through during the show, distracting my very little attention span that I have. So you could let this whole offseason become a fester fest. I'm going to trademark that one. A fester fest over Jim Knowles, or you can enjoy the offseason as national champions, the build up into 2025. Yes, technically we're in 25. Look at the calendar, dummy. I get it. But you can enjoy it. So yeah, I think that fans are going to be salty for a couple of days. I'm not going to get on anybody. I'm not going to poke the lunatic fringe and have them come after me. And I only say that half tongue in cheek. Do what you got to do. Don't tweet at him. Don't tweet at his sister. Don't be an asshole on Twitter. But have all the feelings you want. That's fine. But, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I promise you, it's going to be all right. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. Ohio State's going to make a good hire, whether it's an internal hire or an external hire. Suddenly now we're at a point where we don't trust Ryan Day's judgment again. You gave him, 6 days? 6 days plus to be able to make all the right choices. And now, oh my God, we cannot trust this guy. We cannot trust him to make the right decision. Unless he's hiring his own Billy Davis, I think everything's going to be okay. If you know, you know. About Urban hiring his best man who had a new job every year. And it wasn't because he was particularly great at it, in my opinion. As long as you go about things the right way, it's fine. And I'm going to jump out of line because this is one that I just have to get to. I mean, I run into the risk if I try to make sure I don't miss anything and I miss something that's current at the moment. Quote unquote, don't be an asshole on Twitter. You've been around long enough to know that's not possible for some people. I do think that there needs to be a breathalyzer test. I think you have to. I think you have to pass a breathalyzer test. You cannot be above this certain level of drunkenness, but you have to be above this certain level of drunkenness. You have to be in the range to be allowed to post. I think life would be a lot better. I think on one end, you get rid of the raging assholes that are just hate-filled monsters that just can't have no joy in their life. And if they didn't have Twitter to do that, they'd go home and punch a nun and kick an orphan. I mean, and on the other end, you got people who take themselves way too seriously. So have a couple pops, but not too many pops, and then tweet. That's my opinion on there. We're going to get to the beginning and the hellos and everything else. But at first, let me remind everybody that you are watching us here at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Maybe you're watching us on Twitter. Maybe you're watching us on Facebook. The best place to get all of our content is youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, hit the thumbs up. All of that helps us with our distribution, gets us out there to more Buckeye fans. We just crossed the 25,000 subscriber threshold. We're very happy about that. On to 50,000. They say that sometimes the first 25,000 are the most difficult to get. We're already at 25,1 as of this morning. So we've added 100 in the last day. Let's get us to 50. Let's get us beyond that. But we do all of this for you, our viewers, You mean the world to us. That's why we do it. There's some weeks that we do 30 shows, it seems like. There's some weeks that we do 10 shows. I mean, a lot of it depends on the news, but I think a lot of it depends on y'all too. And I'm not saying that it's on you to make sure we do this work, but I think that the more response we get, positive, even maybe a little negative, helps, keeps us going. Now, if you really want to help us out, sign up for BuckeyeHuddle.com. You want a chance to get some national championship confetti? This is not a drawing. This is not a sign up and one person's going to win. This is not a sign up and 5 people are going to win. If you sign up for Buckeye Huddle, and if you're a new member or returning, I think it works for returning members too. I'm not positive on that one. $4.99 for your first month. Go to the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse Columbus and find the national championship confetti thread. Get in there, get posted, DM Tom Orr, and you're in. Now, the issue is once we're out of confetti, we're out of confetti. We cannot make more. We're not going to cook the books. We're not going to go to the defunct Party City and buy other confetti and be like, oh, really, guys, for sure, this is the right stuff. I promise you, every piece of confetti we're sending out there was picked up by Tom Orr, Tony Gerdeman, or me, Kevin Noon, by hand and put into freezer bags and everything else we could find because we knew you'd want to have your own little piece of the national championship. But additionally, you can sign up for Buckeye Huddle. You can support all the great work we do. You can get all of the team coverage from Tom, Tony, and myself, recruiting coverage from Mark Givler, X's and O's from Ross Fulton and his team of analysts, plus the Huddle board, which is by far my favorite community in the entire world, universe, whatever, metaverse. I was just reading something about the new Superman movie and got all that crap stuck in my head before I got on the show. But that would really help us out. Of course, super chats are great. And I know I've gotten away from reading the threads for a moment just to be able to talk to you about this. But the best way you can help us is by signing up for BuckeyeHuddle.com. Already a member, sign up a friend. You can do a gift membership. You can tell a friend. Always tell your friends to sign up. But you can do a gift membership, get them on board. Once you get on board, I think you're going to be happy. People are like, well, we're at the end of the season. What are we going to talk about now? I'm running a series called A Magical Numerical Run, which I'm looking at numbers, going a little bit deeper of how Ohio State really turned it up for the last 4 games of the season, the CFP run. Tom is still putting out a lot of multimedia stuff. I mean, a ton of great photos and work from the national championship game. Tony, you just ride Tony to the touchdown. I mean, he's just turning out great content, quoted stories, everything else. Mark just dropped a skull session with some recruiting news, Ohio State involved with a recently decommitted 2026 quarterback. What does that all mean? Chip Kelly was just out to see him. So much going on right now. And the only way we can do this is with you. If not, we would be just talking to ourselves. It'd be a lot easier just to get on a Zoom call. So if we're going to be talking about it, you may as well be consuming the content. Come on board, BuckeyeHuddle.com. Enough of that commercial. All right, let's get through some hellos and everything else, and then we will see what we're going to talk about. McChicken was very worried I wasn't going to show up. No, I'm here, and my last name is not Yoder. Don't confuse me with that Michigan guy. I'm going to go and get my hair cut and my beard trimmed this week. And then hopefully at that point, I will be able to maintain this and not look like a member of ZZ Top. So there you go. Thomas Joseph, let's do this. Do we have anything to talk about? ? Aha, I see what you're saying there. Yes, we absolutely do. We've already talked about Knowles a little bit. Ohio State football won itself a big game. They're going to have to sit there and bring in somebody to feng shui the trophy lobby because everything's going to be crowded there now. They're going to have to bring in some contractors to go do some work on the facing of the C deck over in the north end of the stadium to put 2024 up there and light it up for all to see. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. Let's keep going through here. Jeff Frazier, what's happening, Kev? Good to see you. Good to see you as well. Gizmo, this is going to be the year to be wild buckle in ladies. Does that have anything to do with Riz or the Rizzler? I don't understand the reference here. If it means it's going to be the year that all the ladies are going to be calling up 1K Noon on the phone, I'm all for it, but I don't know what this is, but just call me the Rizzler. Chadwick, eat more spicy food. The Penn State slander yesterday was hilarious. That was, for those who've been with me from the beginning of the show today, it isn't slander if it's true. Truth is the ultimate defense in libel and slander. If I'm libeling or slandering somebody, they'll know. But I generally prefer to have the big warm embrace of the truth around me, and then just go to town. With that. Troy V says it's noon at 3 p.m. It sure is. I don't sleep well. Not new news to people who watch the show. I can't make any promises about what time my feet are going to hit the floor. I'm never going to do like a 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. show as the cat is meowing about something. Probably took a big dump on the stairs. So you're generally going to get me in the afternoons. I know there's another show in this market that generally goes at 12. People are like, well, just go against it. I could. Or I could just go in an off time and capture the entire audience. So I'd just rather do that. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So I tell myself. Patrick Logan says it's noon at noon here on the West Coast. Go Bucks. And remember, I am from the West Coast, so maybe that's what it is. But I normally don't do the show at 12 Pacific either. Normally I would do it at 10 Pacific. 1 o'clock is normally my time, and I initially told people on the Huddle board, presented by Jeff Ruby Columbus, I was going to do it at 1. And then I remembered I have calls. I have a 1 o'clock call on Mondays and like a 1:30 call on Tuesdays with one of my side projects. So I have to do it at 3. So that's now everything. Now you know everything of why I have the time, the times that I picked. Let's just keep going through here. Chadwick says, I know we don't put players in the portal, but I could see CJ Hicks following Knowles and wear the 11 at Penn State. Hicks is such an interesting study because he is so pro Buckeye. He was called Captain Buckeye during his recruitment. I'm sure he also wants to be called Captain Playing Time. I'm sure he would like to play. Was Hicks's not getting on the field a case of Knowles trying to get him out there and it just wasn't working? Was it a case of Knowles not getting him out there? I mean, I don't know what exactly the disconnect is. I think that anybody that goes to the jack position immediately has to go to the rear of the line. Hell, it screwed up Jack Sawyer for a year. Jack Sawyer, who, had probably one of the most memorable Ohio State plays ever. Especially for its importance. I mean, yes, I could sit there and put, Keith Byers and his shoe coming off on the touchdown run and everything else right there for images. Hell, they even ran that like on hitting my computer, on Saved by the Bell, pretending it was Slater, when they went and beat their big rivals after he had to sit there and buckle down and pass the test to be eligible. But, in terms of in a meaningful moment, I put it there with, Curtis Samuel against Michigan, the play after the butt fumble, which wasn't a butt fumble or the butt stop. I think we certainly could come up with plays, but, back to Chadwick's point of Hicks. Hicks a great kid. I really wish that there would be a path that everything worked out perfectly. I don't know. New DC, who dis? I don't know what necessarily next year's going to look like in terms of, if they promote Matt Guerrieri, then, he knows his personnel and everything else. You bring in somebody from out of house, sometimes guys that weren't necessarily in the mix have the opportunity. I mean, you look at some of the departures. Mitchell Melton, he transferred to Virginia. Does that open something up there? But do they even really consider running a jack position? I don't know. I mean, I would like to see them run more 3-4, to be quite honest. But that's above my pay grade. But since it appears they're hiring, call me. I'm pretty good at playing NC2A 2025. My reflexes are getting a little slower, but I'm pretty good at it. Every play I've called the right play. I just I don't execute it well. So there you go. Buckeye Tater, we are the champions. That's right. Emphasis on the word the. Ohio State tried to copyright the word the, whatever the hell. Didn't work. But you can still get a hat that says the. And I think everybody who is even sports adjacent, knows what the hell you're talking about. Odysseus with a big OH. I'm sure there's some IOs as I'm falling way behind as usual. Bobby Mack, think of it like this. He announced on Sunday, so no players can transfer at this time. Well, think about this too. I really think that he didn't want to have it be a distraction if that was going to be the case. Now, they're mixed stories. They're mixed stories, and I don't like repopping stories that I can't necessarily confirm. So I'm going to say this with a big disclaimer, not my information. If it ends up being proven to be incorrect, not on me. I'm just parroting something I heard. He was not allegedly not invited because he had not come to terms with Ohio State on a contract deal. And, I certainly have heard numbers out there. I mean, Ohio State was probably not offering the highest dollar figure of the teams that were pursuing him, but there's also something about, when he just signed a new deal like a year prior. And yeah, you could still rip up the deal and have a new number and everything else, and that's all well and good. But if it became apparent that he was not going to be part of the staff the following year, I can understand probably saying, we're good. You should probably work on boxing up your stuff. Now, as for the portal, I mean, guys can wait until April to follow him, but do you see any guys that are projected starters for Ohio State? I'm not, because I was going to say 2 deep, but most of their 1 deep is gone. They're bringing back 3 starters from last year's team: Caleb Downs, IGB, and Sonny Styles. Do you see IGB, Sonny Styles, or Caleb Downs transferring to Penn State? The answer is no. I don't see a Kenyatta Jackson or a Caden Curry or somebody like that doing the same thing either. Now, where it could happen is somebody who might be in the new 2 deep, but not the starter, who could be getting promised times of, you look at the depth chart there, Ohio State, you look up the depth chart here, Penn State, you have a much better chance of not only seeing the field, but seeing it as a starter here. But there's always going to be the concern when you lose somebody that's going to happen. There was no concern when Kerry Combs left after the second stint that suddenly everybody was going to up and leave. I think anybody who follows the Ohio State-Penn State series knows that Ohio State owns the series. And if the game is in Columbus this year, Penn State could be bringing everybody back as it is. Allar, Allen, Singleton, so on and so forth. Doesn't have Tyler Warren. It's real only weapon. It's too early for me to say definitively that they don't have any wide receivers. Check with me in like 2 weeks, and I'll tell you they don't have any wide receivers. I don't know I don't know what the upside is there other than the opportunity to play, which is a big deal. You want to play. You want to be able to play. You came to play football. You didn't come to play backup. But if you are somebody who is leaving Ohio State, you probably are going to have more options than just Penn State. Yeah, I mean, there's the proximity issue. If you're an Ohio kid or from the Midwest or something like that, to be close to home and everything else, but there are better options. And I know I've seen all the betting futures, Penn State this and Penn State that. If you really believe in Penn State, hold on then, because those odds are going to come down. Those odds are going to come down. Getting in right now is not the time to do it. If Penn State is a betting favorite in, on 2 books or whatever the hell it may be, wait till after spring ball. But then, hope springs eternal and everybody's going to feel all, kumbaya over their favorite team. But what has Penn State done other than return everybody off a team who had a cakewalk of a draw to the semis. And what has Penn State done that has you to believe that this team is not just a top 1 team to win the national championship, a top 5 team to win the national championship? And again, Chadwick is probably sitting at their computer going, yes, Noon is on it. He must have had leftovers. I haven't had anything to eat yet today. I'm also bad about eating. I don't sleep and I eat at weird times. What a catch I am. But so you brought back a bunch of guys that, no, I didn't throw it at the cat. I threw it in the room so the cat would shut up. It was just Slipper. What have they done to lead you to believe that they're suddenly going to get over the hump? Now, they've gone out and gotten Jim Knowles. That certainly says something. That's a big deal. The Jim Knowles defense at Ohio State in year 1 and year 3 were significantly different in terms of production, I think philosophy, and everything else. So everybody's like, well, Penn State has pushed all of its chips in this year. It should have pushed them in a year or 2 earlier to get somebody baked in. But it did push them in to go get Tom Allen, who then left to go to Clemson. Now, anybody who knows me, once again, we're playing a little inside baseball right now, knows that I'm not a big Dabo fan, and I'm not a big James Franklin fan. And I have to wonder how bad things must have been under Franklin to up and leave for Dabo. Now, money cures a lot of things, and being in South Carolina and coastal South Carolina, coastal-ish South Carolina versus central Pennsylvania, there's something to that too. But at the coordinator level, you probably shouldn't be bouncing around every year, every 2 years. I mean, yes, Knowles has bounced around some, but he bounced around to get to Ohio State, which everybody thought was going to be kind of a destination for him. And then he moves to Penn State. Now, again, there are lots of stories out there. The ones I've heard, the ones I've not heard, the ones that I can't corroborate, and then the ones I really can't corroborate. So I don't want to repeat a bunch of noise. That's just not fair. That's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to Jim. It's not fair to his family. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to you for me to give you a bunch of crap that I've heard that could be true and then ends up being wrong. So that's why I like to deal in fact and very, very close to fact. And then if it's very close to fact and it's not 100% fact, I let you know. So there we go. There we go. Again, trying not to make the whole show about Knowles, but you guys are the producers. You guys ask the questions, and I try to answer. I try to keep up, and at the end of the day, we keep score, and I always win. But outside of that, we have fun along the way. Gizmo says, I personally think overpaying coaches is a long-term mistake. If you don't overpay them, somebody else is, and you're not going to get somebody. And then what are you going to be at? It's not going to be your concern, because if you're the head coach, you're going to be gone. If you're the AD, you're going to be gone. So if the market dictates that it needs to be X amount of dollars, it's going to be X amount of dollars. I think when you look at it from just like on a spreadsheet, yeah, overpaying coaches is bad. It's just like overpaying for eggs is bad. I would rather pay less, as long as they're quality. But, you could sit there and say, here, these eggs that I found on the side of the road, they could be chicken, they could be duck, they could be turd. I don't know. Sometimes you don't know in the coaching circle. You go out and you get somebody you think you're going to be getting, prime steak, and you're getting, freaking Ponderosa leftovers. So you got to be careful with all that. Let's just keep going. Buckeyes can make up for the lack of Knowles more easily than Knowles can make up for the lack of offense at Penn State. I agree 1,000%. Knowles is not involved in the offense, obviously. Knowles also is not a great recruiter, and I think that might be even by his own admission. I think everybody's going to have an ego. Oh, I can recruit if I needed to. Talked to a lot of kids, and I never really talked to one who said that Jim Knowles' hands-on approach of recruiting was the difference maker. Now, I think in the next year or two, you're going to have a lot of kids who are going to say, yes, I remember what Ohio State did in that Natty run, and the guy who was responsible for that, that's cool. But I even think with that, it's going to be a case of how many of them are going to sit there and say that it is Jim Knowles that did that. Now, Penn State is going to have every recruiting material in the world, and national championship winning defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. Well, I mean, you also have loses 3 games because he doesn't know what he's doing. Head coach James Franklin there. Probably need to counter program that stuff a little bit. Don't you agree? McChicken's Alar is meh. Haven't seen it yet. Haven't seen it. And the thing is year after year after year, they go and they get these quarterbacks who are supposed to be the next pencil in the name prior, Gary Collins, I don't know. And it just hasn't happened. So what the hell is going on there? Are they eating too much creamery ice cream there? I mean, is there something in the air? Because none of these guys pan out. But the fact that Penn State can't recruit offensive linemen and wide receivers is foolish. It's foolishness. It's malpractice. I don't understand. Now, offensive line, toughest position to recruit. It is the toughest position to recruit because so many times you're taking in a fat guy, you're breaking him down a little bit, and you're rebuilding him into a better fat guy. And I can say that as a fat guy. You don't know what you're going to get there. And look, Ohio State has had its issues through recent years recruiting offensive line. We could sit there and take away the reference I was making there. You'd think I was talking about Ohio State. Take out wide receivers, where Ohio State has done really, 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 really well. But offensive line has been kind of hit or miss. Ohio State had to go to the portal to get a couple of offensive linemen. I mean, does Ohio State have to look for another one out in the April portal? Time will tell on all of that. But Penn State, just to have the issues that it's had offensively, is crazy. And then let's go back to the 23 season when they forgot that they had 2 stud running backs and they got away from running Allar and Singleton. What the hell, man? I mean, I almost feel bad for those fans out there. Almost, but not quite. Let's just keep going. Neil Harris says, good after Kevin afternoon. I was called Kevin afternoon like in kindergarten. Or what time is it? It's 3:00. No, it's noon. Or what? I've heard all of it, and trust me, it's better than being called son of a bitch or something like that. So I'll take it. I don't want to see that one trending. Odysseus says things that we should hire Tom Orr as DC. I hear he breaks a whiteboard with enthusiasm at hockey games. Yeah, but he probably want to coach all of the youth hockey teams that he does for his kids. So I'm not sure he could put in enough of a time commitment to make everybody happy on Ohio State. And would they let him take a camera on the sideline to take pictures at the same time? Let's just keep scrolling. Let's keep scrolling. We got to that one. So how far behind are we? We're not that bad shape. We're at 3:09. We're 24 minutes behind. Okay. So we'll just, if I skip you know the routine. It's just a matter of I just fall way behind on this. Kevin, how would you fare toting that crystal football? I would make sure that I had that thing, locked in. $30,000 of Waterford crystal. I'd also sign in, an insurance addendum if I were out there carrying it. It does look a little spiky at some points though too. So I'd probably want to have a glove. I'd want to have a gloved hand. Now it's like if you're barehanded, maybe you could really dig in there a little bit better. But I also don't want to get crystal all up in my fingers and stuff. But you got to high and tight and close, and and if you're going to be you're in trouble, you're at the end of the run, you're going to just put that second hand over it just to make sure that doesn't happen, because you don't want anybody coming in and hitting it from underneath and popping it up. I've seen the pranks before of, oh no, we broke our crystal football and everything else. I don't want to be the one SOB that was responsible for all of that. I've stopped trying to have an actual conversation with my brother about the coaching staff. He now says he'd rather have Laurinaitis as DC over Gary, solely because he's an alumni. Look, they're going to be the people that, if they had their way, it would be 11 former Buckeye players as the coaching staff. Why? Well, I want people who really want to be Buckeyes. They understand the Michigan game. If you don't have the Jimmies and Joes, and that's not been Ohio State's issue the last couple of years. I want to put that out there. Ohio State's issue has not been lack of talent. I put a lot of it on some coaching errors. But I don't understand that thing, because you know what a lot of these coaches want to be as well? Rich. And that means that you're going to have to move around. And if you're in that position of where, even poorly paid coaches these days are making a lot more money. I mean, your poorly paid coaches are making 400, 500 large at this level. I remember not that long ago, your poorly paid coaches were making like 130, which again, sign me up. I'll do that. Maybe not at those hours. I think if you figured it out to like an hourly wage, it's probably not great, because I'm going to tell you this. They're not working 40 hours a week. They're not working 60 hours a week. They're probably not even working 80. It's probably 100 plus. So yeah, it would solve a lot of problems. You could pay off some of your debts and things like that, but don't worry about getting a jet ski. You ain't ever going to get to use it if you're a coach. So, the Laurinaitis thing, I mean, yeah, I think everybody really likes what James has done, but what has been his part of the process of calling a defense? It's not been there. It's not been there. Matt has been up in the booth. He's been there. I think people think of, when they think of Matt Gary, they think of maybe, oh, you mean this week's Parker Fleming? Not to punch down at a guy when he's down, but I had to use an example. Matt is not 23 years old or something like that. Matt is not somebody who was a intern, running Xeroxes and catching, getting coffee and trying to chase footballs when they go into the woods after the kicking drills. He's not that guy. He's about the same age as James. I think he's older than James. If you're an Ohio State fan, you want to have the guy who's going to be able to do the best job, not the guy with the coolest sleeve or that grew up around WrestleMania. And I like James. None of this is talking bad about him at all. When James went to Notre Dame, I died a little inside, because I was like, what the hell is going on here? What the hell is going on? You're the Ohio State University. I think you really have to do a real search. You're not falling behind on the recruiting trail at the moment because you don't have a DC. Let programs recruit against you, and you just say, natty bitch. I mean, you just do that, then, rather than hurry into a hire. Now, you may get to the end of the race and realize that Matty G is your guy. That's where you want to go, and that's fine. But I think that you need to have a real search. You need to talk to the Jim Leonards of the world and everything else. Now, issue with Jim Leonard is he's a 3-4 guy again. And that doesn't always align with the philosophies of everybody else on the defensive staff. So, we'll see. We'll see. I don't, I know that wasn't really a question. It was more of a statement. Hopefully I answered, your statement there a little bit better. McChicken says, I just got out of bed 15 minutes ago. No, I haven't showered. That's for certain. I had a 1:00 call that I had to be on. I think my feet hit the floor at about 12:15. But this was the first night that I really slept. I went to bed at 10:30. I slept until about 6. I got up, shuffled around the house for a couple minutes, went back to bed. I think I slept till about 11. And then from 11 to 12:15, I did that snooze alarm, play on the phone type of game where there was no real sleep. But I think my body appreciates it. I've still had that chest cold from the Rose Bowl, and I got like a sore throat today. Doing a 2-hour show probably wouldn't be the smartest thing in the world, unless that was my only job. Now, if I were like, a real radio guy and had my own show and everything else, I wouldn't be calling in sick or dead unless I truly was sick or dead or both. Let's just keep going here. Asian Pastorine says 3 p.m. is fine. Again, it's going to depend. I would love to say that this show is going to be on this, and this day at this time. Appointment viewing means everything, or at least it used to. Even in the day of VCRs, because a lot of people couldn't figure out how to operate them. If I knew I wanted to watch the Cosby Show, I knew that was on Thursday at 8. and I needed to be there to watch the show. Now with DVRs, I couldn't tell you when any show is, ever, because I don't have to be there to watch it. It just records itself. Oh, if it moves, the DVR, if it's smart enough, catches up with you and moves it for you. So this is a little bit different. This is a little bit more of a throwback. Yeah, you can watch the rebroadcast. You can't ask questions if you watch the rebroadcast. I mean, I highly recommend, even if you watch the live show, to watch the rebroadcast. I just need the views. Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on, we'll get into spring ball, and then that's going to dictate my schedule. And then, Southern Swing will, I'll be gone for a couple of weeks, hopefully 2, not 3. That was just too damn long. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Again, I'm probably not going to hit the 12 o'clock hour. As much as that makes sense, I'm just not going to hit it because I just don't want to share an audience. Now, if somebody comes after my show and starts going against me, and I'm not saying the person is at 12, then it's war. But for now, I mean, I can play nice in the fenced yard. Let's just keep scrolling. Another good point from Doreen. No players are leaving with Knowles, like running backs and Alfred. Yeah, nobody left. I mean, there was not a situation of where one of the younger guys, or something, Evan Pryor, went to Cincinnati. He didn't go to the team up north or whatever. So, and the thing is that at least in that instance, Alfred worked a lot closer with a smaller number of people. Knowles is positionless, or was positionless. He was not the linebacker coach anymore. That's Lauren Knights. He was not the D-line coach. That's Johnson. He was not the secondary coach. That was either O.G. Walt or Matty G. So, and that's not to say that he didn't know the names of his players. He probably was so lost in his coffee at times. He probably had sometimes grunted at a couple players. But yeah, I agree with what Doreen's saying there. I agree with what's saying there. Let's just keep scrolling. I'm in that game. I don't want to scroll too far, miss a lot of good questions, and catch grief. Oh, and I want to say hi to Mike Smith, who did not text me, but I was talking to Mike Smith, a member over at the Huddle, who said, I'm going to text you so you can give me a shout out. Well, I beat you to it. Don't expect it often. I'm playing with a 24 card deck right now, not 52. So I forget things. Lisa Sims. Hello, go Buckeyes. 2024 Natty champs. That they are. Who had a chance to watch the national championship celebration at Ohio Stadium? If you didn't, we have it posted in its entirety. YouTube.com/Buckeye Huddle. It was cold, but not as cold as some days leading up to the championship and everything else. The worst thing I can say is that the Wi-Fi was kaput, so we did not get to stream it. We'd made plans on streaming it, but short of having a really expensive television level unit, like TV station level unit there was 0% chance we were getting a shot out of there. I couldn't even get the page open to get the shot out. Sometimes you get the page open and then you're like, we would like to go live. And it's like, well, you're not going to. I couldn't even get the page open to get the big middle finger. That's how bad the Wi-Fi was. I think it's in hibernation with Yogi and Boo Boo right now. McChicken says to feed that kitty some edibles. That kitty's 18 years old and a royal pain in the ass. And the only time she's happy is when I'm sitting on the sofa and then she can lay next to me and then be really judgmental whenever I need to get up or move or try to type or anything else. So it's really amazing I get any work done. But speaking of getting work done, I do have a piece that I'm hoping to push before 5 p.m. I think it's all dependent on when I'm done with the show. I'm doing a series called A Magical Numerical Run. It is a free series, but don't let that stop you for signing up for Buckeye Huddle. Looking a deeper dive at some of the numbers out there behind Ohio State's 4-game run through the CFP. A lot of little good factoids that I am finding right now. The piece that will come out today is on the defense. The offense came out on Friday, and then kind of the piece that set it all up started on Monday. I have enough content on there for 2 to 3 more pieces. We'll just kind of see. Also coming from me this week, Hot 11. For those of you who are not familiar with that piece, top 11 players on the Ohio State team. It is a running culmination, if you will. So it shouldn't just be based on the Notre Dame game. It should be every game up until that point. And now that we're at the conclusion of the season, all I ask is that people voting in it over on the Huddle board, presented by Jeff Ruby Columbus, take off the recency bias and look at the 16-game season. Obviously, you can weight recent play over early play, but there'll be times that, like, going back many seasons ago, field goal kicker would kick 4 field goals and suddenly like 8 people would have him like number 6 on the team. It's like, this is for the season in its entirety to where we stand right now. How is somebody who was receiving 0 votes suddenly 6 on the team? So it's a constant battle, but I do the piece for you. I don't do it for me. I don't sit there and go in and twist the numbers to reflect my Hot 11, because I could just make it easier and do my own Hot 11 and say, well, I didn't get any of your votes. Let me just keep scrolling. Mika's here. Hey, Kevin, buddy. Love you too. Mika, I'm sure we will have a Skull Session recruiting podcast coming up here soon. It's only Monday. Have not had a chance to catch up with Mark to kind of figure out what the schedule is, but a lot of that has been on my lack of availability more than Mark's lack of availability. Rightfully so, based on chasing this team all over the country and writing about big wins. But now that the travel is done until the NFL scouting combine, we should have more time to fall into a regular schedule. Can you believe that National Signing Day is next week? Doesn't really matter. Nobody really signs at that period anymore, so I wouldn't get that excited about that. But 26, 27, both starting to heat up. Ohio State heavily involved with a quarterback who was once committed to Florida State in the 26 class who just decommitted. He's released kind of a list of his favorites. Ohio State is in the mix. Chip Kelly just went to visit him, so that's important. A lot of stuff. Ohio State had several players on campus for the national championship celebration. I've not had a chance to talk to anybody yet. I did fist bump a couple of guys like prior to the event, but we didn't really have any conversation. They get a little hinky about talking to kids at any point when they're on campus. And there are a lot of points where you're not supposed to. There's some points where it's more of a gray area. I think yesterday was more of a gray area. Hell, it was a white area. It wasn't really, it was not forbidden, in my opinion, but ever the rule follower, I'll just always follow a false set of rules to the point of my own detriment. That's just, McChicken says, King Bronco said he's calling PETA, claiming kitty abuse. I can assure you that foot was 10 feet away from the cat. It was just a shut up, stop meowing. It's basically the cat's like, okay, I see you sitting there at the table. You're not sitting on the sofa where you normally are. Move your ass. Let's just keep going here. Lisa Sims, yeah, I will believe Penn State will actually win a natty when I see them be able to win the whole thing. Until then, it's just a dream for them. It is, and we kind of touched upon that a little earlier, and I try not to not repeat myself. When people come in late, I understand not everybody can be here the whole 90 minutes, 60 minutes, 120 minutes. I don't have an issue with it. Sometimes people are like, oh, we've already talked about that. Well, we're going to talk about it again. Sorry. They have no offensive line. They have no wide receiver. You lose Abdul Carter, who's a tremendous player. You lose Tyler Warren, who's a tremendous player. They're bringing back a lot. That's great. Now, if they were bringing back a lot from a team, and of course, we could have this bias. It's like the national semifinalist, winner of the whatever, the peach or the orange or wherever the hell they, won their second round game. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, same team that also came really close to beating Notre Dame. I look more negatively upon that game than I look positively about that game for Penn State. Once again, they put Allard in a bad situation, and he uncorked a terrible interception. At worst, that game should have gone to overtime. And then you see where things go from there. Andy Kolnicki, their OC, I think he's a great offensive coordinator. But again, you cannot get blackjack if you take all the aces out of the deck. You can get 21, but you can't get blackjack if you take all the aces out of the deck. That Penn State deck is short of aces offensively. Probably has none, to be quite honest. I really like their running backs, but they can't throw enough to be able to do everything that they need to do with those running backs. So I'll believe it when I see it as well. Drowsy Dragon, dynasty emerging in Columbus, baby? Or even not a question, statement. Dynasty emerging in Columbus, baby. That's my statement voice, not my question voice. We'll see. This is going to be the year that's going to be the crazy year, in my opinion, because of so much departure. Are the guys that saw limited playing time or no playing time going to be able to step into those roles and flourish? And I'll say this, Ohio State week 1, Texas. If Ohio State comes out and doesn't win that game, which is very possible, and I'm not telling people bet Texas, not telling people bet Ohio State yet either. I don't really know enough on that front. I've not turned my brain off of 24 yet. Not turned my musical taste off the 1980s yet. So I'm one who's slow to change. So I'm not quite there yet, but Ohio State's going to make the playoff unless this year just absolutely gets away from them. And then when we've seen, if you make the playoff, anything is possible unless you're like SMU. Ohio State's not SMU. So we'll see. So you put it together in 25. You're going to lose some guys. You lose Sonny, you lose Caleb Downs. You're going to lose. You're going to be at the end of the line with like Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, Sonny Styles, I guess, is at the end of the line, if I didn't say him already. So, you're going to face more changes, but I think that the transition from 25 to 26 is going to be less personnel intensive than the other way around. I think it's going to be a case of where you're going to be returning a lot more starters. You're going to open that Phil Steele magazine and you're going to look at starters returning. You're not going to be like, oh, my heart, because it's, 3 on defense and whatever it is on offense. I think you're going to see a team that may not necessarily be as dependent upon the portal. This 25 team, obviously getting a couple of offensive linemen, getting a running back, et cetera, getting a tight end. We're not talking about Max Clare enough. All very important pieces for Ohio State to keep this thing running. But I will also say, on top of it, Ohio State's been in a dynasty, maybe just short of the ring and the trophy emoji. But Ryan Day is 70-10 as a coach. Does this year get the gorilla off of his back about winning the big games? And there are going to be people be like, yeah, but they were favored in all those games. So were they really that big? And what you say to those people is, does anything make you happy? Is anything good enough for you? Quite honestly, Ohio State against that 12-team field, in hindsight, absolutely should have been favored against all of other 11 teams. I think maybe going into there would probably be favored against, 7 of the 11 teams, maybe 8. I don't know. That's an interesting point. I should jot a note down, but of course I don't have pen and paper next to me, but do a piece kind of looking at what those lines could have, would have, should have been. I'm sure there's enough historical data out there from some of the betting types that I could probably see what actual hypothetical lines would have been at those moments. But Ohio State probably, certainly in hindsight would have been favored against all of them, because even quote unquote your top teams had issues. Georgia couldn't throw the ball. Georgia couldn't run the ball. You look at, who else? They're just, they would have rolled against Arizona State. They would have, rolled against, whoever out of the ACC. It's set up perfectly for Ohio State. But, the thing is that I don't think that there was any team at the end of the season in the field, out of the field, Ole Miss, Alabama, whoever else you think should have been in the field that wasn't in the field, that Ohio State would have really had issues with. Texas by far was the best team that Ohio State played in hindsight. Tennessee really dinged up with injury. Yes, Ohio State down 2 offensive linemen, so on and so forth. Nobody gets through the season unscathed, but Tennessee was really in a bad way. Oregon should have been maybe the best team Ohio State played. Best team in the nation does not play the way that Oregon did, and Ohio State was responsible for almost all of that, holding their head under the water. It's like, say uncle. They could have hung 80 on them. We really could have. But best teams don't necessarily have that type of output, that type of outing. Texas 28-14, 7 of those points come on like the most memorable play in a generation in Ohio State football. That and the Zeke play, that and Zeke running through Alabama, through the heart of the South in terms of just one play in a vacuum. I'm sure there could be some disagreement, some additions. How about that? I don't think anybody's going to say, no, neither of those plays deserve to be on the list. It's like, no, Noon, you need to expand the list. And I'm fine for it. I'm thinking on the fly here. No preparation goes into these shows. No small animals are hurt. Even my cat, who I just threw a shoe near. Now my foot's cold. But, I don't come in with a ton of notes. A tape show, I do have notes. I cannot lean upon you guys like a crutch to get me through points if I can't think of an answer. That's why I prefer live shows, to be quite honest. But yeah, we'll see, Drowsy Dragon. Good Lord willing, 365 days from now or whatever, we're having the same conversation about 2 in a row. And then it's can they win a third? You just keep going. Not 1, not 2, not 3, whatever the hell LeBron said. Gifted says, what's up, Kevin? Go Bucks. Yes. Chadwick Morin says we would be good friends. We already are good friends. This is would-be crap. We already are good friends. Come on. We're going to keep scrolling. Again, a lot of things here have been well covered. I'm about 30 minutes behind on comments. Florida Buckeye. Kevin, when will the 2024 and the Ring of Honor be unveiled? Spring game or opening game? I think it's going to be opening game. It's only been a week, obviously, and anybody who follows me on Twitter, I took a picture of there. I'm like, what the hell, contractors? What would be a better setting to do that? The spring game, which is still probably going to have 75,000 people, or the Texas game, which will be a sellout. Unfortunately, will be at 12 p.m., so it won't be a matter of it being lit up or anything like that. I think you absolutely do that then. I think that's the time to do it. Maybe you do the rings at the spring game or something like that. Whatever it takes for Jocelyn's to get all those rings in. But I would absolutely do it at that game. A little bit more juice, gets the crowd more juiced up, maybe snap some people out of the malaise, get that thing going then. I think that's the right move. Am I an event planner by trade? No, but once upon a time, I did throw a party or two back in my fraternity days. Let me keep going here. When I go back through and I listen to this for our podcast version, for our audio version, I know I'm at near the end of the show when I see these big pauses as I'm trying to read comments. I'm the same guy that has to turn down the radio when they change lanes on the highway, because I just think better when it's quieter. David Whalen joining us on Facebook. Initial quote unquote, too many hands on the elephant, perhaps wore Jim Knowles down, irritating him to the Exodus decision. I get what you're saying. He was brought in to be the head coach of the defense. Generally, when you bring in somebody under that title, you kind of want to be left the hell alone. I think after giving up 32 points to Oregon, you do have to kind of have a circle the wagons moment. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? It's all well and good that we beat the hell out of 3 non-conference opponents. It's all well and good to beat Michigan State and Iowa in the conference schedule, but go against first real offense, and we're starting to see some things that we've seen in the last 2 years. But what is Jim Knowles going to find at Penn State in terms of James Franklin can leave him the hell alone? I mean, that's fine. He's not going to have the personnel that he had at Ohio State. To the point of some people being concerned about transfers, he's not going to get any of Ohio State's top-line guys. And I don't think he's necessarily going to get an up-and-comer like Jalen McClain to come over. Because here's the thing, and I've said it and I'll say it again, and I want to preface this by saying there's not a single ounce of bad blood in my being towards Jim Knowles in the whole situation. I don't particularly like the timing of it, but you got to do what you got to do. Got to get paid. I get it. He's in his 60s, unless you're the ageless one like Larry Johnson, you want to put as much money away as you can. Life's expensive out there. But I kind of lost the train of thought here, talking about Jim Knowles trying to regain the train of thought. I mean, it is, it is what it is on that. You sit there and you're going to have people who are going to get involved. Oh, I know what it is. You're not going to, he wasn't recruiting these kids. It's not like yes, there is always going to be a bond between a player and the guy who recruited him. But if every time a coordinator or just a position coach left and created, chaos, we would never have a video game because nobody would ever know who was on what roster. We would never have rosters because we would never know who was on it. So I think he's going to see fewer 4 or 5 stars across the board on the defensive side. That's not to say that Penn State is incapable of going out and getting some players who absolutely could play at Ohio State. I mean, it's fun for me to get in there and be, well, they suck and they're this and that. No, they can absolutely get guys like that. But it is a lot easier for Ohio State to be able to go and land these guys. And I don't know the rest of the Penn State staff well enough to know what kind of recruiters they are. They seem to land some guys. They're going to land most of the Pennsylvania guys. They're going to be the guys that are going to go to Pitt regardless because that's just their school. They're going to be the guys that are like, I'm not going to Penn State regardless because that's just how they feel. But with that being said, I don't think that they're going to have the amount of depth to be able to get by that. Let's put it this way. They're not going to have, and I know he didn't have his best game in the championship game. They're not going to have Jermaine Matthews as next man up at one of the corner positions. They're not going to have Malik Hartford as next man up at one of the corner positions. They're probably not going to have Arvell Reese as the next man up at one of the linebacker positions. And I could go on group of Caden McDonald, Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So while they may be able to sit there and be in the same room with Ohio State 1 through 11 on defense, they're not going to be in the same room with Ohio State 1 through 22. And they're certainly not going to be in the same room with Ohio State 1 through 33. Am I too close to the Ohio State situation that I have scarlet glasses on? I'm taking the glasses off. They're not going to be able to do that. They're just not. Lisa Sims, when is the spring game going to be? Good question. I don't know. It's normally like the second Saturday, as long as it's not like the 8th. It's normally around like the 14th of April, 14, 15, 16, something like that. I think they're still trying to make some decisions about how to run spring ball, when to run spring ball. They don't have to start when they do. Now, they normally do their schedule because of a workaround, and it's a workaround. It's not illegal. A lot of schools do this before somebody's like, oh, I can't believe Noon just admitted a violation. It's a workaround. You start spring practice a little bit before spring break. You get an extra week of having the expanded hours with the kids in place. So you're really you're not running physical practices. You're running mental type of stuff, conversations and things like that week. And you get an extra week out of spring ball. Now, Ohio State also had practices all the way up till the 19th of January, a lot of them with first-year players who were early enrollees. So Ohio State in some ways is ahead of the game. Those guys got practices. Guys who are going to be starters in 25 got practices. Guys in the middle got practices. So, they got, in theory, almost 3 weeks of extra practices. You still have to go back to the lab, do mat drills, winter conditioning, things like that. But I think you're going to probably see more players that certainly factored into the every practice type of thing. I think you're going to see them get a little bit more of seated time because you need to let the body heal itself, recover itself. I'm sure there are a lot of guys who over the last couple of days and into the next couple of days who will quietly be going in for little procedures and things like that to, drain this or tighten up that or whatever it may be. I mean, and again, I'm not trying to get ahead of little nonsensical injuries that don't mean anything in the large picture, but it was a brutal schedule. It was a brutal schedule and they played a lot of football. So To your question, Lisa, I don't know. I promise you over Buckeye Huddle, we will have that thing posted in scarlet neon, if you will, once we know the dates of all of that. But as of the time that we went live, it's 4:05 p.m., January 27th. Right now, I do not have a firm answer on that one. I've talked to some people, and I've kind of gotten the paraphrase of quote unquote, will you give us a break to, it's been a week, close quote. So we'll see. Let me keep scrolling here. Again, if I skip any of your questions, nothing personal. It's just I'm trying to stay from falling underwater here. I look like I'm getting pretty close. Again, my goal is to go to the bottom of the hour, 4:30 Eastern. That's a 90-minute show. Not all that bad for somebody whose voice is coming and going. Another one from Lisa Sims. I wonder how the 12-team playoff will work out this year. Same thing again this year with a team with multiple losses who may or may not have played or won their conference championship game, or will it be different this time around? Let me get back to the main one so I make sure I address the question, because again, I don't get to really pre-screen these questions. I'm reading them live, so I haven't had a chance to think about an answer year. I mean, this year is going to be similar in terms of the same exemption rules to the bye week and everything else. 26 really is going to be the first year that we're going to see changes. I think it's really interesting how none of the teams with the first round bye won a game. That was kind of crazy with that whole situation. Mind you, none of those were home games because you go and you play in the traditional bowl system. But I still think that 5 spot is really sweet, and even the 6 spot. Ohio State learned that getting the 8 spot, while you can win the whole damn thing, you're going to get a pretty tough draw. But then again, in 2014, Ohio State was the 4 and ended up having to play Alabama in New Orleans. And yes, I know New Orleans is not in Alabama, but it may as well be in those circumstances. So I think it's going to be a lot of the same names. I think there are going to be some new names. Certainly when you come and you look at maybe who the group of 5 darling is going to be. I think that the Big 12 is kind of up in the air. I think that the ACC could be a little bit up in the air. I'm not going to bite the cheese of, oh, Miami's going to be good this year. Not going to do that. I'm not going to bite the cheese on Clemson. Certainly not going to bite it on Florida State. I just don't know. But, with the Big 10, I think that you're going to sit there and be looking kind of at the same teams. Does USC take a step forward? Does, the team up north take any steps forward? Will we beat you? Well, I don't play on the team, so you didn't beat me, son. But, does Penn State take the step forward and get past the semis? Do they take a step back? Do they get a real draw to where they have to play against, a team like Ohio State had to face? I don't know. But in terms of the mechanical side of it, it's going to be the same. And I think in the execution side of it, a lot of it's going to be similar, but let's not forget, it wasn't a case of where in 15 that way. I don't think the 4 seed won the national championship in the 14 playoff in that year. So stay tuned. And the cat is now meowing again because she sucks. The Heat are suspending Jimmy Butler indefinitely because he walked out of a team shoot-around on Monday. What a world. Would I be suspended if I got up and walked out of this chat? Probably not. Jordan Kennard. Kevin, I'm not familiar with the portal window. Are you hearing anything on if OSU is going to look for more pieces in the portal for this upcoming season? Portal's closed for reals now until it opens again. Ohio State and Notre Dame were given 5 additional days after the completion of their season for players to make their announcements to enter the portal. I'm going to probably over-explain this, probably more than you ever asked for, Jordan, so I apologize, but just because you asked, there are probably 5 other people who really want to know the answer. Once you're in the portal, it's not like players can't exit the portal once the portal is closed. It's just the entrance door is closed. The exit door is open. You can still go and announce, I'm going to XYZ school or whatever. That's fine. As for, is Ohio State going to look for anybody? The portal reopens in April, I think for like 2 weeks. I don't have the dates in front of me. Ohio State will look at what it has and decide if there is a need. Obviously, it is best if you have it all in-house, but if you sit there and you need X position, and I'm not saying X receiver, if you need an X position and you don't feel coming out of spring that you have it, best to be looking for one. This isn't the old days where it's like, well, we're going to have to ride with what we got and hope for the best. Now, remember, too, at this point, you do not have your summer enrollees in. Now, it's not an often instance anymore to where summer enrollees are going to be day one starters. That's just generally not how it works anymore. But to Jordan Kennard's, question, yeah, I think they could still be looking. Dare I sit there and say where? I mean, I think everybody's going to say offensive line. Well, I think it depends on what your early enrollees look like. I mean, you have some known quantities in Luke Montgomery and you have known quantities in Austin Saraveld and Carson Hensman and guys like and Integra Shabola. You have known quantities there. You bring in two guys, one from Rice and one from Wisconsin, and you see how they fit in. If you don't think that you have what you need, then you go out and get it. Now, here's another piece to this. You don't always have to go and portal somebody that has to be a projected starter. You can portal somebody. It's like, we don't have the depth at this position. We don't have the depth that we need. We need to bring in somebody. We're not worried about 25. We're worried about 26. And then what you're getting is somebody, maybe you play a little bit in 25, you still keep them under the redshirt rules or whatever, depending on what everybody's got their own eligibility picture. So it's just because it works for this guy doesn't mean it works for that guy. But you do that, and then you've got a guy in 26 who might be 21 years old, who has a couple of years in college under his belt, who can then step into the role. So it's not always a case of that you're bringing in somebody to immediately play them. Now, that has to be communicated right off the bat. You don't want to have hard feelings. I mean, again, the portal is much more of an individual than a school. This isn't the same thing as going and recruiting a kid out of, Main Street High School in Indiana, and then you lie to them and you're dishonest or whatever. Well, guess what? Main Street High School in Indiana isn't going to particularly like your program for treating their kid like crap. Here it's not a case of if you bring in a kid from Clemson and you're not exactly up and up with him, that Clemson's going to be able to sit there and say, see, none of you guys should ever recruit to Ohio or commit to Ohio State in the portal because look at what they did. I mean, they can try, but it's not going to do anything. So hopefully that answers there. Thomas Joseph, fresh off a national title. Ryan Day is a Buckeye legend. But if OSU loses 28-21 in Ann Arbor for his fifth straight loss to Michigan, what happens? Does the 12-team playoff change how we see the game? A lot to unpack there. A lot of hypotheticals. Very fair question. Question I don't know. Well, I know that I don't have the answer to it. So I was going to say, I don't know if I have the answer to this. I do know. I don't. If they lose to Michigan again, it's going to be horrible again. People are going to be pissed and up in their feelings and everything else. And I'm telling you, some of the most vocal people that ever communicated to me about it were some of the most rational people I know. I got a couple of friends that are absolute psychopaths. And whenever they get angry and say something, I just, and just go by it. But I've had friends that have been very rational about things. And this has nothing to do with anything beyond just their fandom. I mean, I'm just talking rationality there. Who were ready to catapult him into one of the Great Lakes. And I'm just like, wow, where did that come from? Having a natty helps a lot. Now, we've also seen guys with natties get fired at some point. It happens. But I think that you have to have an absolute collapse. I think you have to go from 13-0 back in the old days. We'll just say 13-0 to 6-7 or 6-6, or I guess 6-7 because of a bowl game, to like 2-10, to have that type of decline happen in that type of time span. And I'm still talking about 2 years as opposed to 1 year. There is no reason Ohio State should lose to Michigan 4 times in a row, let alone 5. And There was the one year where Ohio State was pretty banged up, and I will give that one maybe the greatest pass of them all. The one I will give the least pass to was 24. There is absolutely no reason that one should have happened. I've done shows where I've kind of handed out my blame. I'm trying to stay relatively positive as we got 15 minutes left in this show. Has the view of the game changed with the 12-team playoff? I mean, let's not forget. Let's go back in the history books. It used to be that the Big Ten would send one team to the postseason. Not two, not four, not eight, one. There were times where it was the Big Two and the Little Eight. Big Two being Ohio State and the team up north. If you didn't beat Michigan, you weren't going to a bowl game generally. So there were more tangible things involved with that game than now. Yes, Ohio State has been knocked out of the conference championship game because of losing to Michigan. Yes, Ohio State has not been invited to the old 4-team playoff because of that. So I get it. But I think we're in much more of a natty world right now. I've said it once and I'll say it again until I can't say it anymore. Contractors are going to be working on the facade of the C deck to put up a 2024 for a national championship. There's nowhere on the facade of the C deck that there's anything for wins against Michigan. Is there room? Sure. Smaller numbers, you can do all of that. But is there a case of where should Ohio State be emphasizing the Michigan game more or de-emphasizing it or emphasizing it the same amount? If you keep building it up to this, to the white whale in Moby Dick, you're having to battle more than the team lining up across from you. If you minimize it too much, it kind of cheapens history, the greatest series in all of sports and everything else. If you emphasize it the same, well, that ain't working right now either. So I don't know. I think that you need to emphasize it. I think you need to, if you have 10 balls to put in buckets, I think you need to rearrange how you're doing it in terms of where the emphasis is. I think that honestly, it's time for war being played 24 hours a day at the Woody doesn't seem like a bad proposition if it gets everybody in the right frame of mind. And I'm not saying that they necessarily weren't in the right frame of mind, but what happens when you flip the switch on Ohio State? When you flip that switch to on, when you turn that dial to 11, Spinal Tap fans, what happens? They go out and leave a bunch of holes in the ground to where they incinerated their opponents. I think that you have to take lessons from that moving forward and put it into this. What are the lessons? I don't know if I have those down yet. How do you do that? I certainly don't have that down there. Do you know anything, Kevin? I know that we're done in 12 minutes. So I think that's where there's going to be the greatest tie in between these two things. You've done it. A lot of you guys on this roster were part of the team that did this. We have got to take that into the Michigan game. It's not like Michigan takes a game lightly. You talk to any Michigan fan in the world's like, nobody up here takes it as seriously as you guys do. I'm not even sure if I disagree with them on that. But there are going to be the guys, too, that are going to be like, we don't even care about that. Michigan State's our real rival. Well, chirp on all you want. I'm going to keep scrolling. See if I get caught up. All right, I'm close to the end as we're here, almost at about 10 minutes out. Let's see. Right here. I think we're talking about the Texas game here. That's what we run into. I think it's big noon since we play Washington and Seattle that week. Oh, that's a different game. I bet it's the NBC primetime game. Let me see if I can find what that one was for. I don't know. But Michigan or Ohio State, Texas will be the big noon game. Nobody at the network has told me that. Nobody at the conference or at the university has told me that. I just know. As much as talk about as much as talk about the national championship game has coincided with the Michigan losses, Ryan Day more than deserves flowers for his son or for this run. Could be said that the Michigan demons have been exercised. Those demons will not be exercised until he's shooting a bird at Sharon Moore after the game. I mean, he's exercised a lot of demons. There's still a demon there named Michigan that he has not exercised yet. But Noon, you're so level-headed. You just generally try to take the positivity out of all of this stuff. But I'm also a realist. That demon is not exercised until it's exercised. Win a big game demon, exercised. Win the national championship demon, exercised. Have a team that shows toughness, exercised. A lot of things have been exercised, but you cannot exercise the Michigan demon by winning 4 games against teams not named Michigan. That's my sense. He has, he and the team have tasted the success and the joy and the champagne of everything of winning these games. Doesn't mean anything in the scope of just the Michigan game. You got to come out. You got to win the game how you win it. You cannot let them dictate it. You cannot be like, call me on born on third base, MFer. I'll show you. We're going to run it down your throat. If you can throw it all over there and leave a little red splotch of blood and dirt on the turf where they used to stand, throw the damn ball. Win the damn game. That's what it comes down to. I don't care how you did it. Obviously, I care if you cheat. Nobody likes a cheater. But I don't care how you do it if it's within the rules of the game. Win the damn game. That's what matters. So, not to be a contrarian, Jordan, but that's my view on it. You cannot exercise the demons of A without completing A. You can't do it by doing B, C, D, and E. You've got to do A. I think 94% of the demons have been either exercised or sent back to hell for a couple of years, hopefully to stay there. But in order to silence the people about beating Michigan, beat Michigan. Let me keep scrolling. Kenneth says, same Kevin. I hate that I already know that it'll be at noon. We're talking about the Texas game. Yeah, it is what it is, and it's gonna do huge ratings and everything else. And hopefully maybe some high school seasons. I mean, like in Ohio starts like a week before Ohio State. But hopefully you can still get guys in and everything else and make a big to-do of it. Ohio State in the season of all of the big noon games, of playing big noon for what felt like 2 straight months, still won the Natty. So the world didn't end. There will still be beer to be drank just earlier, or screwdrivers. I really prefer a good vodka orange juice myself. Problem is, if you have too many of them, then you can't drink orange juice for like 2 months because it just, my stomach. But if I'm ever like on a morning flight and it's, there's like, no charge for drinks, I'm having a screwdriver. Let me just keep scrolling. Again, we are already, we're in the final 8 minutes of the show. Jordan appreciates the reply. That's what we're here for, Jordan. We're here to reply, whether it's myself, Tom and Tony, Mark and myself, whatever configuration of show we have. You guys make it possible. We on the live shows, we prepare very little, if anything, because we know you guys are going to come loaded up with questions and comments and everything else. And I miss a lot of them along the way just because I can't read them and talk and think and chew gum at the same time. So I'm not chewing gum at the moment. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. But here at the end, let me remind you, if you're looking for championship confetti from the championship game and you're not a member of Buckeye Huddle, why the hell not? $4.99, first month, Buckeye Huddle. All the great coverage there, plus the opportunity to get championship confetti. Again, this is not a contest. This is not a get in. And then guess how many chicken nuggets Tony would eat without ketchup or with ketchup or anything like that. How many pickles I would eat. I can make fun of myself. Sign up, get into that thread on the Jeff Ruby Huddle board, and get confetti. This is actual, promise you, every piece of confetti was picked up by Tom, Tony, or myself. We're not cutting it with baby powder. or Party City confetti or anything like that. It's all genuine, 100% confetti from the championship game. Oh, and by the way, on top of all that, you're getting all the team coverage from Tom, Tony, and myself, recruiting coverage from Mark, X's and O's from Ross and our team of analysts. $4.99. I mean, hell, I don't even think you could buy you can't even get a $5 pizza at Little Caesars anymore. I think it's $6. I think it's $6 to get like their hot and ready now pizza. So for less than that, you can get a fantastic month at Buckeye Huddle. You won't be disappointed. And championship confetti. Trying to think if there's anything else going on. I think we're kind of caught up. Ohio State basketball is underway. I think they got a game tonight. I'm pretty sure they got a game tonight. Will I go? Probably not. I don't know. We'll see. Can I find my credential? I think I lost it. I think the football team will be there for an on-court celebration. So if you're on the fence about going, go. I don't go because I live in Pickerington, and it's a pain in the ass to go back and forth. So go. Mr. Ohio says, I want some confetti. Well, I've given you the steps, but one more time, at risk of repeating myself, sign up for Buckeye Huddle, $4.99 for your first month. No coupon code necessary, I believe. I think it just defaults to $4.99. At that point, go to the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Columbus. Find in our pinned threads the national championship confetti thread and say, hey, me likey, me want, and then DM Tom by clicking on his name, start a conversation, and put your information in there and get in on the second drop. I don't know how much we have left. I've not been told to stop promoting this, so I assume we have some. I know a lot of it is getting sent today. Tom is going to the main post office here in Columbus over by Channel 10 to put it there because, I mean, he took a picture, and I mean, it is a big tote full of letters and everything else that this confetti is going out on. So sign up again, BuckeyeHuddle.com, $4.99 for your first month. Then go to the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Steakhouse Columbus. Go into our pinned threads, find the national championship confetti thread. I think that's what it's called. Me likey, me wanty, DM Tom, profit. And you're getting a month, your first month, because I truly believe if you come on board, you're not going to want to leave. And we don't hold you hostage like some other organizations do to, well, what is your mother's maiden name and her blood type and everything else? You know, if it's your information, we hate to see anybody go. I'm not giving anybody an idea of signing up and then leaving. I'll find you and punch you in the throat if you do that. But yeah, it's a good experience. It is a good experience. All right, Mika, and an all caps, and this will probably be our last one, barring a super chat, as my voice is almost gone. Does CJ Hicks stay at D end if he stays with the team? Who's the defensive coordinator? I don't know if I can give you an answer to that without knowing whose defense it is. If it's Matty G, then I think it's going to be very similar to the Jim Knowles defense. And if you're a duck, you're a duck, and if you're a bird, you're a panda, you're a panda or whatever. I don't know. So it's not me covering my butt and trying to not answer the question so I can prove to be right down the line. This is me saying we don't know who the coordinator is. We don't know whose defense it's going to be. Now, after spending this time at end, it probably makes more sense staying at end because you put time in at end. And while instinctively you might sit there and you might say, well, you grew up playing linebacker, so it should be easy to get back to it. They moved Jack Sawyer to the jack position. Didn't get a ton of results because Ohio State never was really committed to playing the jack position. And then you move Jack back to defensive end. And while we saw flashes at the end of 23, he had a tremendous game against Missouri, don't forget. That's the only thing you need to remember about the Missouri game, is that Jack Sawyer played well. All the rest of it, throw in the garbage and then light the garbage on fire. It took him there was a crescendo this season. So as for Hicks, I would say what makes most sense if he remains in the program, and that's a decision he's going to have to make, and I'm not pushing anybody out, period. But if he remains in the program, is, probably stay at end. Ohio State loses a couple of guys. I mean, if you could sit there and become like a major rush in behind Kenyatta and Caden, I think that sounds like a better path right now than what might be the situation at linebacker. You got Sonny, you've got Arvell, you've got some young guys. I mean, it's nothing is given to you, and you're not insinuating that it is, and nobody's insinuating that it is. Nothing is handed to you. You've got to go out there and take it. You got to go out there, earn it, and take it. And CJ certainly has all of the attributes. He's just been in some crowded rooms and some situations football situations, nothing else, football situations that have not allowed him to see extended run. I think CJ's game is best suited for somebody who is out there as a pass rusher. And that's not a slight. If I don't say that you're a 3-down player out there on first down, second down, third down, but if I think that you are like somebody who could be lights out on third down and maybe half a second downs, do it. Do it. But what you should also do is subscribe to this channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Hit that bell. Hit it now. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that now too. I'm going to wait a second while you hit those buttons. Awkward silence. And done. Be sure to even leave us a comment here on YouTube on this video, what you like, what you don't like. I'm ugly. I can't make myself look any better. I guess I could groom my beard a little bit better, but I'll do what I can there. We will reconvene with another live show this week. I had a lot of fun. We're just over 90 minutes. Maybe my voice will even be in better shape at that point. No, I don't like hot tea and honey. I don't like tea, hot tea, cold tea. The only tea I like is iced tea, and that's the wrapper, not the drink. But until then, I want to thank everybody for joining us here on the Big Me Kickoff. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you very soon, all of you national champions.